So that was Merle. Thank you, Merle. And let's move on to our next topic. The phone lines are still open, so feel free to give us a call at 646-716-5370. This week, Oscar asked a very interesting question, which was...
screw you.
Does IQ really... Does IQ... when does your IQ really break down like who you are?
Well, they have so many different ways of measuring it. You have what's that NFL test that they offer? The Wonderlic?
Yeah.
The Wonderlic test.
My mother, when I was, I wouldn't say 18, had me tested with IQ, right?
Uh-huh.
And to this
Is that
day...
when she came home sobbing?
No. It was just, I was litany of tests.
Ay, Oscar! Oh, Dio mio! No, retardino!
And to this day, she screams out my IQ number, which I don't care for. It tested very high, but she screams it to me, and I said, Mom, if it was that high, and at this point, I think the last time she yelled at me was when I got fired from CBS.
Right.
I said, why am I only making $40K a year? You know?
You are, because you're doing what you love to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that,
but she screams it out like it's the Bible, and I don't really believe in...
But even back then, when you were making that money, you were probably loving what you were doing, even though it was not exactly what you wanted to do.
Yes.
I think that you genetically would probably... You would have brothers and sisters that would prove that. I think it's in the gene pool of your family to be overachievers.
Yeah.
Are you the lowest, even though you have that staggeringly high IQ, is it still the lowest in the family?
You know what? I would say no.
That's a funny
My
question.
sister is the smartest. She's got the best number. My brother is lower than me, but my brother's an even harder worker.
Your brother,
than I
the
am.
doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
And workers are
Meanwhile,
not
you're
rewarded
on-
with
on
an
a
intelligence
podcast.
test.
Since Jason is not busy answering your calls right now, I'll ask you, Jason, do you know what your IQ number is?
I don't, but I'll tell you what I do know. This is the first time.
Now, will this fill a book, or is this something we can get in a pamphlet? I'm just wondering. Go ahead.
Could go either way.
Yeah, what do you know?
This is the first time I've actually kind of felt like Oscar, found a way to relate to Oscar. I was tested when I was in grade school. Apparently, I was very, very high IQ. My parents actually were given an option of sending me to Johns Hopkins, and my mother declined.
Isn't that a hospital?
I think there's a university.
You were so
program
smart
that's
they were
part
going
of
to
it.
CAT scan you. What? Okay.
Anyhow, she wanted me to have a normal adolescent child development in middle school, so she kept me in South Burlington school systems.
Held you down.
Probably an error.
Kept down by the woman.
I have been very curious to find out what it is. I know from my SATs I could join Mensa. I'm not interested in joining Mensa because...
Why not?
Because Mensa in Vermont is basically a way to get money out of people who want to have a high IQ.
Oh, Jesus.
It'd be one thing if I was in a big city and there was a lot of get-togethers being run by it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm basically spending $65, $70 a year to be able to show people my card and prove I'm smart. So,
But, I mean, what does it get you? That doesn't get you anything.
Mensa, nothing. It's just a club, basically.
Right.
So that's why, I looked into it just out of curiosity to see what their standards are. I know my SAT scores qualified me, so theoretically, I'm fairly bright. I've done the little self-test IQ books before.
Yes.
And those were frustrating because
Those are called Mad Libs. Yes, go ahead.
No, I got one of those from the bookstore. The problem with them is they cap. So I got all the answers correct. And then it just tells you, your IQ is 135 or higher. That's not really very satisfying.
What is the point of that?
There isn't one, apparantly, as I discovered.
This is why I'm confused, like Oscar, in the fact that I don't understand what it really means. I was tested for my number is, but I don't really care. It's not like I've ever put it on my resume. It's not something that I walk around town going, hey, guess what? This is my number. So it doesn't make much sense to me to have gone through that experience. I'm sure that it helps to a certain extent if you're trying to determine whether or not a child or a person is
Capable.
Capable. I'm trying to determine how insensitive I really wanted to be. I should just say it. Is the kid a retard or not? I mean,
I might have gone for dullard, but a little less objectionable.
You just don't know. You have to. There comes a point probably where you question a child's. It has to happen during childhood. You don't usually have to answer that question in adulthood. I have hired some people that I've had to question that later on, but that's something that usually happens during your childhood. And for me, I have a high IQ theoretically, according to the numbers. It's a 131. That's what I've been told. It's high relative to everybody else. What has it gotten me?
Well, I think Marilyn Vos-Savant is the one who's recognized as the highest tested IQ currently in the country. I think she's like 195. My understanding of intelligent quotient is it's a measurement of your ability to learn. Doesn't mean you're smart. It means that you have an ability to understand, comprehend, and grasp a subject. It's whether or not you choose to do that.
So at 195, you can learn how to use a mixing board and do it properly for your podcast versus somebody with a lower IQ.
And apparently somewhere above 135, you can learn to talk into a side-fire microphone.
Yes,
I might be below that number.
Yeah. Jason has a lot to learn about microphone technique. I keep trying to help him out, but we'll work on it. Anyway, that being said, I thought it was an interesting question, and I get why Oscar brought it up, because it really has very little relevance. But Mike related to it perfectly, in the fact that it wasn't about the fact that Oscar had turned into a doctor or a lawyer or some other highfalutin type of profession. Oscar pursued what he loved. And actually, Oscar's intelligence and his ability have allowed him to not only follow his passion and dreams, he's been able to do it and exponentially grow it. So not only is he on one podcast, but he's on 15 podcasts, and then he's held a full-time job at the same time, and he's maintained relationships, and blah, blah, blah. He's been able to do all this.
Heading to China.
Probably because of the fact that he's been able to learn how to juggle it. Not, if he was as you put it, a dullard, he wouldn't have been able to keep up. There's no way. But he would have been really great as maybe a phone screener for a radio show somewhere. That would have been his job if he had been a dullard.
There's a school of thought about IQ and trainability, to use an old Don and Mike term. But like they talk about it with dogs. So they rank breeds that are trainable or untrainable.
Yeah.
It doesn't associate to the dog's intelligence. It's their ability and willingness to do menial tasks. And there's always been a theory amongst the labor powers that be that sometimes you want a person with a lower IQ for an assembly line job. No offense to anyone with an assembly line job, but the idea is
as
that,
my father used to say, everybody needs ditch diggers.
Right. Well, my father never said everybody needed ditch diggers. My father just constantly told me I would be a ditch digger.
Yeah. There was something like that. The world needs ditch diggers. Yeah. I don't know, something like that. Anyway.
But the idea behind it was that certain individuals are great at tasking. They might be tremendously skilled at a job if you teach them how to do something. But sometimes an individual with a higher intellect and the natural curiosity that comes out of that might not be your most productive worker. Their mind wanders. They're going to try to figure out different ways to do things.
Right.
You know what they are? They're Rob Speedwack. They're going to figure out the minimum amount of effort necessary to get the job done.
But I will give Rob props on this, that may be the case, but I think because of Rob's intelligence, not only will he figure out the easiest path to completion, but he will still do it very well.
Oh, no. I'm not arguing against that. He's going to do it extremely well, but he's not going to kill himself to get it done.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, let's approach it from the aspect, because Oscar, later on in that clip, relates back to his brothers and sisters who are doctors. You work in the healthcare profession.
Yes.
Now, you are not, no offense, on the highest rung on the medical ladder.
No, I'm not.
Because you work in radiology, right?
Correct.
And so as a
let's clarify. I'm a radiographic technologist, because people hear radiology.
Ooh,
that
looks
hear
good
radiology,
on a business card.
They hear radiology,
yeah,
and they think radiologist, which is the doctor that reads the films. I am not that person. I'm the guy that takes the pictures.
All right. So just in your experience, and let's not point in any particular doctors, because I don't think any of them are fans of this show, so we don't have to worry about that. But how many dullards work in the medical profession in your experience?
How do you want to define the medical profession?
let's start with the doctor level first. How many doctors are really, you question whether or not they should really have a DR in front of their name?
There's a lot that I and
is it a personality thing or intelligence thing?
If you work with anybody
in
any field, there are people that you work with that you have a great deal of respect for, and then there are people that you know are capable of the job, accomplish the education, and you don't agree one iota with what they do.
Yeah.
That's what I experience in the field. There are doctors, we work with through our emergency room where you're just like, oh, for the love of God, when they come on. Because there are doctors who still diagnose and still know how to do that and will talk to a patient, examine a patient, and take the path of best treatment while keeping cost in control. And they're not doing it from a perspective of trying to run a low-cost business. They're just saying, I don't need to CT or X-ray you if I think I know what's going on here. Now, that exposes them to risk, and that's dying in the medical field now because of malpractice.
Right.
But you then have another second class of doctors which examine everything with radiology. So they'll send everything over for an X-ray, a CT, whatever, because then it's some other doctor's responsibility to catch something. And that's becoming a big trend. And when you run into like people in my field, there's respect, probably isn't the right word, but there's a level of disgust with doctors who don't sort that out and just kind of spam everything, for lack of a better term, with X-ray. So I don't think there's any dullards I've met that have an MD in their name. You're going to be found out real quick in 11 years of college.
I would hope so. I would hope so. But then again, we heard recently on TMOS Mike and Carla's experience when they went to go see.
That's not a dullard. That's a person with no people skills.
Well, I beg to differ. I think it's yes, I understand your perspective on that, but I think you have to be a total and complete idiot to be in a field where you are not only diagnosing and working with patients every day, that requires a personality skill and trait where you can actually interact as a human being with other human beings. If you can't do that, why the hell are you in the medical profession? You should be in a lab somewhere doing scientific experiments on monkeys. Do not put yourself into a medical office treating people.
It's like anything else. A lot of stuff enters into any career choice. So you have doctors. A lot of doctors are what you might call legacies. Parents were doctors.
Yes.
A lot of doctors are from moneyed families, and there's an expectation of accomplishment. Look at Oscar's family. Oscar's always looked down upon to some extent in his family because he isn't the doctor.
Yeah.
Everybody else followed in Dad's footsteps.
Right.
Oscar went a totally different direction, and he might be really happy and pretty successful in his field, but that doesn't measure up to them. He's the guy who's clowning around on a radio show, in their opinion, and not doing something with his ability. My mother's given me this line before in the past, too, which is like, when I was working at Home Depot, because I wasn't mature enough to handle college the first time around, it was, you're wasting your abilities. You should be, it's not about what you necessarily want to do. It's about what do you bring to the face of the earth as a talent or an ability. And if you're letting that go, is that a crime?
I wish that my parents had treated me in that way. What I got was, you want to go into radio? No way in hell. Because their concern was the fact that I wouldn't be able to put a roof over my head and food on the table.
Right.
And I get from their experiences and where they were coming from, but honestly, I think that I'm a pretty intelligent guy, and I think I know what I'm doing, and I can figure things out pretty damn well. And I kick myself every day for not having made a different choice 25 years ago. But anyway, let's not get on